Gregory Bar Hebraeus, previously known by his Latin name Abulpharagius, a Syriac name Mor Gregorios Bar Ebraya, was a catholicos of the Syriac Orthodox Church in the 13th century. He is noted for his works concerning philosophy, poetry, language, history, and theology. He has been called one of the most learned and versatile men from the Syriac Orthodox Church. He collected in his numerous and elaborate treatises the results of such research in theology, philosophy, science and history as was in his time possible in Syria. Most of his works were written in Syriac. However, he also wrote some in Arabic, which had become the common language in his day. Name. It is not clear when he adopted the Christian name Gregory, but according to the Syriac Orthodox tradition of naming high priests, it may have occurred at the time of his consecration as bishop. Throughout his life, he was often referred to by the Syriac nickname Bar Ebraya, giving rise to the Latinized name Bar Hebraeus. This nickname refers to his Jewish background, which means son of the Hebrew. His father was a Jewish physician. The name also referred to the place of his birth as well, Ebra, where the old road east of Malatya towards Karput and Amida across the Euphrates. He is also known as Abulpharagius, a Syriac bishop, philosopher, poet, grammarian, physician, biblical commentator, historian, and theologian. He was the son of a Jewish physician, Aaron. Bar Hebraeus was born in the village of Ebra near Malatya, Sultanate of Rum. Under the care of his father, he began as a boy the study of medicine and of many other branches of knowledge, which he never abandoned. A Mongol general invaded the area of Malatya, and falling ill, sought for a physician. Aaron, the Hebrew physician, was summoned. Upon his recovery, the Mongol general Anarion, who took his family with him, went to Antioch. The Bar Hebraeus continued with his studies, and when he was about 17 years of age he became a monk and began to lead the life of the hermit. From Antioch he went to Tripoli in Phoenicia and studied rhetoric and medicine. In 1246 he was consecrated Bishop of Gubos by the Syrian Orthodox Patriarch Ignatius II, and in 1252 he was transferred to Aleppo. In 1255 was transferred to the See of Lacarbin, and finally was made primate or Mafrian of the East by Ignatius IV Yeshu in 1264. His episcopal duties did not interfere with his studies. He took advantage of the numerous visitations, which he had to make throughout his vast province, to consult the libraries and converse with the learned men whom he happened to meet. Thus he gradually accumulated an immense erudition, became familiar with almost all branches of secular and religious knowledge, and in many cases thoroughly mastered the bibliography of the various subjects which he undertook to treat. Bar Hebraeus preserved and systematized the work of his predecessors, either by way of condensation or by way of direct reproduction, both on account of his virtues and of his science. Bar Hebraeus was highly esteemed. He died in Miraga, Persia, and was buried at the Marmatai monastery, near Mosul. He left an autobiography, to be found in a Semani, Biblioth, Orient. 248–263. The account of his death was written by his brother, Gregorios Bar Ebraya. Works, encyclopedic and philosophical. His great encyclopedic work is his Huath Hekmethah, the cream of science, which deals with almost every branch of human knowledge, and comprises the whole Aristotelian discipline, after Avicenna and Arabian writers. This work, so far, has not been published, with the exception of one chapter, by Margoliouth, in Analecta Orientalia ad Poeticam Aristotelium, 114–139. The catholicos Bar is a compendium of logic and dialectics. The rest is to be found only in MSS, preserved at Florence, Oxford, London, and elsewhere. Tegrath Tegre, the Commerce of Commerces, a resume of the preceding, also and published. Cathabadi He Sevad Sophia, Book of Speech of Wisdom, Compendium of Physics and Metaphysics. To these should be added a few translations of Arabic works into Syriac, as well as some treatises written directly in Arabic, biblical. The most important work of Bar Hebraeus is Ozar's Storehouse of Secrets, a commentary on the entire Bible, both doctrinal and critical. Before giving his doctrinal exposition of a passage, he first considers its critical state. Although he uses the Peshitta as a basis, he knows that it is not perfect, and therefore controls it by the Hebrew, the Septuagint, the Greek versions of Symmachus, Theodotion, Aquila, by Oriental versions, Armenian and Coptic, and finally by the other Syriac translations, Heraclean, Philoxenian and especially the Syro-Hexapla. The work of Bar Hebraeus is of prime importance for the recovery of these versions and more especially for the Hexapla of Oregon, of which the Syro-Hexapla is a translation by Paul of Tella. His exegetical and doctrinal portions are taken from the Greek Fathers and previous Syriac Orthodox theologians. No complete edition of the work has yet been issued, but many individual books have been published at different times. Historical. Bar Hebraeus has left a large ecclesiastical history called Maktvon Zabni Chronicon, in which he considers history from the creation down to his own day. Bar Hebraeus used almost all that had been written before him, showing particular favor to the now lost chronographic records published by Theophilus of Edessa. The work is divided into two portions, often transmitted separately. The first portion deals with political and civil history and is known as the Chronicon Syriacum. The standard edition of the Chronicon Syriacum is that of Bedjin, Gregory Bar Hebraeus Chronicon Syriacum. An English translation by Wallace Budge exists. This was to give context to the second portion, known as the Chronicon Ecclesiasticum and covering the religious history. The section begins with Aaron and consists of a series of entries of important individuals. The first half covers the history of the West Syrian Church and the Patriarchs of Antioch, while the second half is devoted to the Eastern Church, the Nestorian Patriarchs, and the Jacobite Maphrians. The current edition of the Chronicon Ecclesiasticum is that of Abulpharagius and Lamy, Syriac text, Latin translation. An English translation by David Wilmshurst was published by Gorges Press in February 2016. Bar Hebraeus later decided to write a history for the edification of Christians rather than for the Church itself. This became Mukhtasar Fil Duwal. An 1890 edition of his work is a translation by Fr. Anton Salifani. A Latin translation exists in the older edition of Edward Pocock, translated Historia Compendiosa Dynastiarum. Theological in theology. Bar Hebraeus was a Miaphysite. He probably, however, thought that the differences between Catholics, Nestorians, and the rest were of a theological, but not of a dogmatical nature, and that they did not affect the common faith. Hence, he did not consider others as heretics, and was not himself considered as such, at least by the Church of the East and the Armenians. Indeed, he once mused, when I had given much thought and pondered on the matter, I became convinced that these quarrels among the different Christian churches are not a matter of factual substance, but of words and terminology, for they all confess Christ our Lord to be perfect God and perfect human, without any commingling, mixing, or confusion of the natures. Thus I saw all the Christian communities, with their different Christological positions, as possessing a single common ground that is without any difference between them. In this field, we have from Himenorath Qudhshe, Lamp of the Sanctuary, and the Cathabadi Zelj, Book of Rays, a summary of the first. These works have not been published, and exist in manuscript in Paris, Berlin, London, Oxford, and and Rome. Ascetical and moral theology were also treated by Bar Hebraeus, and we have from him catholicos the Quan, Book of Ethics, and catholicos Orna, Book of the Dove, an ascetical guide. Both have been edited by Bedjan in Ethicon seu Moralia Gregory Bar Hebraeus. The Book of the Dove was issued simultaneously by He. Bar Hebraeus codified the juridical texts of the Syriac Orthodox in a collection called theology, Book of Directions, edited by Bedjan. Bar Hebraeus Nomen. A Latin translation is to be found in Angelo Mai Scriptorum Veta, Nova Collectio, Volume X. Bar Hebraeus has left, besides many other works, on grammatical subjects. We have the Book of Splendors and Book of the Spark, both edited by Martin Uvas Grammaticales de Abulpharagius. Bar Hebraeus also works on mathematics, astronomy, cosmography, and medicine, some of which have been published, but others exist only in manuscript. Other works. A full list of Bar Hebraeus's other works, and of editions of such of them as have been published, will be found in W. Wright's Syriac Literature, pp. 268–281. The more important of them are catholicos Babatha, a treatise on logica dialectics, Hueth Hekmetha, an exposition of the whole philosophy of Aristotle, Salar at Hornana, a treatise on astronomy and cosmography, edited and translated by F. Now, various medical works, catholicos Elj, a treatise on grammar, ethical works, poems, catholicos Thani Mighijzakan, edited and translated by E. A. Wallace Budge. Veneration. He is regarded as a saint by the Syriac Orthodox Church, who hold his feast day on July 30.